Hello, my name is Alphonso Ivy, and I am a student at the University of Missouri St. Louis, grad student taking up clinical mental health counseling. And I've had a few friends give me a call just to see what my opinion was on the Ferguson Riots. I've had a couple friends from multiple backgrounds, a couple of my white friends, some Latino friends, some black friends, and pretty much they've all said, hey, Alphonso, you've always analyzed everything, so why don't you analyze this, give us an answer, why is this happening? And one of the things I said was, it's complicated. And generally everybody who's commenting on it sounds slightly ignorant because it's difficult to answer every situation. There's multiple circumstances and situations that are going on. There's multiple groups of people that are going on. And so it's not just a monolithic situation or a monolithic group that we're talking about. And what I mean by that word monolithic is one single entity. The group of looters, they're different than the group of Black Panthers, different than the group of NAACP, Al Sharpton, different than the group of church people and the different churches and the different denominations, different than the volunteers. So all of these people are going to behave totally different. There's not a monolithic entity. And so you can't say, why are they behaving this way? It's totally different people. And so, again, it's difficult to answer any question on it without having a live, interactive conversation, and then you can answer it in an intelligent way. So, but I'll attempt to answer some of the questions. In doing that, I think I have to identify who my audience is so I can know who I'm speaking to. In this case, I'm going to say that my audience is people who are outside of St. Louis who really don't know how St. Louis works and what it's all about. And then my secondary audience is people who's inside of St. Louis and don't know how St. Louis works. I have a unique perspective on it because I wasn't born in St. Louis. I was born in Dyersburg, Tennessee. I came up here in the 90s, and even then I had a culture shock because I came from a school that was similar to Parkway West or Vianney, something of that nature. Here in St. Louis, an elite school, a school who had money. We had weatherproof tracks, great uniforms, Letterman jackets. When I came up here, I couldn't even get a Letterman jacket at Northwest High School. I love Northwest High School. They taught me a little bit more about being black. I didn't even know the black national anthem when I got here because that's not what they taught in our school. Hadn't heard of it really. Yes, shameful. But at the same time, I definitely came into a high poverty environment, a high crime environment, metal detectors, security officers. Never heard of that at my school. We couldn't afford a lot. The school had a lot of disparities. Computers were bad. Everything was bad. The uniform I put on was bad when I went to wrestle. Everything was bad. There was second nature to everything that I saw in the county and with some of the county schools. And I knew better because I came from better. But some of the other students, they didn't have an idea. So anyway, I'm going to try to get right to it so that I don't overload this with opinions and rants. I'm just going to try to answer some of the questions. That way, if you got to get off the video because it got too long-winded, at least you'll get some of the facts up front more so than opinions. So I try to front load it with facts. One question is, who is Michael Brown? I don't really know him. A lot of people don't know him. But from what I can tell, he has no criminal record. He was a high school grad, enrolled at Battle Rock. He was accepted at Battle Rock. He was a victim of a larger system in play, meaning it could have happened to anyone that's black and male and here in St. Louis. On that day, in the same manner, given the same circumstances and the same responses, it could have happened to anybody. And that's what I mean by it's a larger system in play. Next question, why did the officers shoot? We don't know. Who can answer that? But we do know that there's no good reason to shoot an unarmed man for any reason. I mean, it could have been because he's racist. Could be. We don't know yet. He could be prejudiced, which is a totally different word from racist. Prejudice is simply prejudging. We're all a little prejudiced. I was prejudiced when I was taught to guard the quarterdeck on the United States Navy ship. If somebody would have ran up on that deck with a turban on his head while we were stationed in the Gulf, I probably would have shot. Probably not, because I was trained a little bit better than that. But what I'm saying is, because there are cultural differences, there's an ignorance level there. I don't know what he's about to pull off from under the turban or anything, because, again, there's cultural ignorance and lack of awareness. and that might cause me to shoot a little bit faster than what I normally would. So that's prejudice. Number 3, he could be culturally unaware. Like I said, number 4, not a good reason either. He could have been having a bad day. He made a bad decision, devalued a black kid's life, a black man's life, any life for that period. He made a bad decision because he was having a bad day. Again, there's no way to really answer why did he shoot. So that's that. Another question, is the Ferguson Police Department racist? I doubt it. The same scenario could have happened in Pine Lawns, Jennings, Country Club Hills, Hanley Hills, St. Anne, or Bridgeton. All of these are municipalities that surround the greater St. Louis area, or I'll say the St. Louis inner city. St. Louis County and St. Louis City are two different entities, although it should be all of St. Louis. But we're set up different than a lot of states, a lot of places, a lot of cities. St. Louis County has 91 municipalities, which is way too much. I mean, again, right here I'm getting into opinion rather than facts. I would say it is my opinion that has something to do with greed, probably something to do with race, something to do with wanting to set up your own little kingdom. We got all these different mayors, all these different police departments. Those are the municipalities. But these municipalities surround the St. Louis inner city where the greatest concentration of black people are in the city. So when you have things right there in the city, on the outskirts of the city, if this would have happened in Pine Lawns or Jennings or any of these nearby places to the concentration of black people, there would have been a riot under the same circumstances anywhere. So the answer to that is no, I don't believe Ferguson is any more racist than any place around here, including the whole United States. We got similar circumstances that lead to these problems. Number 4, is there a racial problem? No, already got that one. Is the Ferguson Police Department racist? Again, that's pretty much the same answer. They're no more racial than anybody else in any police department. There can always be one bad apple, a bad cop, but I got to put myself in their shoes. I was trained up to their caliber on weapons department in the Navy, but I wasn't trained to take people in handcuffs. Trained to shoot and kill. But again, I don't think they're any more racial or racist than Valley Park or Fenton or the entire St. Louis area or anywhere else in America. The thing is, again, this is a cultural issue. This is why these type of things happen, because we don't know each other. We got disparities. There's a big gap. Education disparities, which leads to income level disparities, which leads to crime level disparities, which leads to incarceration, and it gets back, they get out and we still have the same circle. It's a cultural issue. We don't know each other, and fear as well as ignorance produces volcanic or explosive results. So we could begin to solve some of these problems if we knew each other a little bit better. I mean, we got the same thing happening in every state, every inner city. When you have kids at school, the blacks go hang with the blacks in the lunchroom, the whites go hang with the whites, and you go to St. Anne, all of the Mexican kids at Ridner High School, they're probably hanging with the Mexican kids at Ridner High School. Right now, St. Louis is one of the 8 most segregated city in the United States. So when I say a cultural divide, and is this just a St. Louis problem or just a Ferguson problem? It's not. I want you to listen to a couple numbers with this cultural divide. So the same thing could happen in any city, any of these cities I named, because you are creating an explosive situation by not dealing with the problem. Before I get to that, I'm going to read a little bit of St. Louis history. Even after the Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka decision in 1954, St. Louis schools remained segregated, as with many cities, black and white St. Louisans lived in separate parts of town. For the most part, African Americans generally lived north of Delmar, which is the other video I posted, by 1970. White residents in the south and southwestern city with an integrated strip down the central corridor. These housing patterns dictated the racial distribution in schools, creating a de facto segregated education system, which is not fair. Even after the Supreme Court held that separate schools could never be equal, some 3 students in 4 in St. Louis city schools were African American in 1980, whilst white students increasingly attended county schools. And so you think that's going to be fair? Of course not. maybe they didn't understand it because they were brought up in it, they lived in it. But me coming from a different place, moving to St. Louis, in the midst of that, as a kid, I felt all of that. I knew all of that. But I already had my great educational foundation from where I came from, at Dyersburg High School. But again, the same hotbed would have and could have happened anywhere. It's an explosive situation ready to pop off. It could happen again 2 months from now because this situation still remains. It remains in Milwaukee, in Baltimore, in Detroit, in Oakland, in Cleveland, in New Orleans, because we have similar situations going on. Let me read you these numbers. Segregation. Like I said, St. Louis is the 8th most segregated city in the United States. And some of these cities, like I say, we have the same problem when you look at the list. Who's number 1? Detroit. Milwaukee's number 2. So is there a problem in Milwaukee? I don't live in Milwaukee. I don't know what's happening in Milwaukee. But I do know there's probably a racial problem, a prejudice problem, and a cultural problem, an education gap, an income gap, an unemployment gap in Milwaukee because these numbers are the same. New York City, 3. Chicago, Philadelphia, Miami, Cleveland, and again, St. Louis, 8th most segregated. Boston, number 9. Violent crimes. Now, this is according to Forbes.com. They rank, they're the people with the money. They rank St. Louis as the number 2 most violent crime place in the United States. Detroit again, number 1, top of the list. Followed by Oakland, Memphis, Birmingham, Atlanta, Baltimore, Stockton, Cleveland, Buffalo. Had a racial incident in Buffalo just earlier this year. Again, these numbers bear out. I could put a chart across and tell you all the cities where this type of stuff is going to pop off at any given time because it's volcanic and it's a hotbed. Single-parent households. Right here we have St. Louis is ranked 16th in the nation with 57.9% of the households in the inner city St. Louis is ran by single black mothers. Where are the fathers? In jail. Or just gone. Why? There are several reasons for that. But again, I mean, we got places like Milwaukee, Flint, Atlanta, Detroit, Oakland, Cleveland, same places. All these numbers bear out. You can get those on citydata.com or you can get the other ones on Forbes.com. Again, even the Riverfront Times, a local paper here, ranks St. Louis as 3rd highest in the nation in unemployment rate. And there's a 3rd more in black unemployment than what there is in white unemployment. At one point, it was as high as 16 for blacks and 8 for whites in this city. And with the black numbers, it's a little bit similar with Latino numbers or Latina numbers. Again, Minnesota is probably the highest as far as like the income gap between blacks and white, but St. Louis is number 3. You have people angry around here because of this, whether they did it to themselves or whether it happened as a larger part of the system, which it did. Again, I just read the thing on the Brown versus the Board of Education. Nothing has changed in the educational system from day one. This is a state that was a slave state bordered by a free state, and so we had free blacks and slaves walking down the same street. They've been angry. Nobody has ever rioted in St. Louis. They may have rioted across the bridge in East St. Louis with, I want to say, 1917 East St. Louis race riots, one of the bloodiest race riots in the United States. But it hadn't happened in St. Louis until now. And so I'm saying you're fortunate that more blood has not been spilled because this is volcanic. These are the situations that we have created and have not changed from day one of slavery, which was here, of educational system, which was here. We got all these municipalities because black people stay in one central area, and when they move out, white people move a little bit further. And so when people say St. Louis is a good place to raise your children, the St. Louis that some people are talking about is totally different than the St. Louis other people are living. You may not understand what's going on in Walnut Park. They call it Murderville. I mean, this was the place that I came from, Dyersburg, Tennessee, to move up here to St. Louis, and I moved to Murderville. And so you don't know anything about Emerson and Beacon and Plover, 5400 Crips and 19th Street Crips. You don't know anything about what's going on Genevieve and Oriole, what's going on Etzel and Clara. There's a lot going on, and just to ride down there is worth respect. And so again, there's a very different St. Louis that one group of people is living in and raising children in, as opposed to what the other group is living in. So when you hear people say St. Louis is a wonderful place to raise your children, what I'm saying is there is a cultural divide, and it is not the same. I only see it and I get it, I understand it, because I wasn't always a part of it. I had to come into it, and I felt the difference, and the difference was immense. More numbers. High school dropout rate in St. Louis, over 50%. Let me read you the graduation rate for St. Louis City, 45.9% graduation rate. That's ridiculous, 45.9%, when just 15 minutes away from the school with the worst graduation rate, which is probably Roosevelt. I haven't looked it up, but they had like 42% dropout in one school. But just 15 minutes from there, you got a school with one of the best graduation rates in the nation, at 1%. 1% who dropped out, which means 99% graduated. Again, large disparities from what's going on in the city and the county. Two different St. Louis's altogether. This is happening all over the nation. So is it a Ferguson problem? No, it is not. This could pop off in any of these other cities that I talked about. Milwaukee is ripe for this. Ripe. So government, you should keep your eye on Milwaukee, because these situations are the same. Baltimore, Detroit, and Chicago, Washington, they already burned once before. It just didn't happen in St. Louis. What else we have here? In 2012, over 2,000 black high school students in inner city St. Louis were classified as dropouts. Those numbers haven't changed much. 72% of black kids are raised in single-parent households. These are St. Louis numbers. Urban League and the WashingtonPost.com says St. Louis is one of the most unequal places in the United States for unemployment rate. I already said that. Todd C. Frankel article in the Washington Post says in the 1960s, Washington, Chicago, Baltimore all burned, but not St. Louis. And again, that doesn't include East St. Louis, which is Illinois, right across the bridge. Totally different situations. Like I said, the race riots. And so that's pretty much most of the numbers I got, or the hardcore facts. So again, if you want me to break it down and summarize what I came up with here, I got numbers that anybody can go look up for themselves. And I'm saying, when I started naming these cities like Detroit, Milwaukee, Oakland, New York, Rochester, Flint, St. Louis, Cleveland, these places have the same things going on. And so when something happens, the people are going to respond in a similar way. And I'm saying something was broken a long time ago that needs to be fixed. I don't have a problem with going to hang out with my white friends, because I've been culturally assimilated to do so. I can go hang out with some Mexican friends because I've been culturally assimilated to do so. I learned it in the Navy. I learned it in Tennessee. I've learned it in multiple places, how to be an ambassador, how to be a diplomat, how to be a counselor, how to be a minister, how to be a person who can assimilate into any environment. But not everybody can do that. And so you want to know why they looted? That was one group of people who looted. Those are the people who have no answers. They have no leader. All they know is that they're angry. They see something around them that they don't know how to